So I find it so cool that us Godzilla fans get to feast with last year's Godzilla Minus One, which came out a few months ago, and now this year's Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. We haven't had anything happen like that since 1964 with Mothra vs. Godzilla and then King Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, which I'm glad that I'm able to say that. It is a wonderful time to be a Godzilla fan. So I want to start off by saying welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome. If you're a fanatic of everything entertainment, then this is the channel for you. But in today's movie review, we'll be talking about this year's Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. So let's get into it. I'm hoping that this film is successful at the box office because I missed out on Godzilla vs. Kong, which came out in 2021. Movie theaters around that time were very hit and miss if you're able to go or not. So that didn't make as much money as, we thought it was going to, but it was still pretty successful with those circumstances. So I'm hoping that this one does much better. But either way, let's get into the things that I did like about this movie. I think this film really balances the kaiju action scenes and story really well. So with these MonsterVerse films, me and a ton of other people just go to see Godzilla and King Kong mess things up. They do that in this movie in strides, which I'm a big fan of. And like I said, they balance those kaiju scenes really well. There's probably like 25-30 minutes worth of just human stuff, and the rest is kaiju stuff. So I'm guessing there's like an hour, maybe 45 minutes of kaiju stuff, which I'm a really big fan of that. This movie knew what it was, and it just went for it. The tone of this film is a lot different than that of Godzilla Minus One, which I knew that going into it because I did see Godzilla vs. Kong before I saw Godzilla Minus One, so I knew what I was getting myself into, and I feel as if this is a Taco Bell movie. We know it's not the best thing for us, but we have fun with it. That's what this film is for me. It's a lot of fun. It's nowhere near as good as Minus One. And really quickly before I get into anything else, when I saw Godzilla Minus One for the second time, I met this family, and the kid, I'm guessing he was like 14 or 15, was like, yeah, I'm not excited for Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, because, Godzilla Minus One is where it's at. And at the time, I was thinking the same way, but if you go back and watch like the Showa era stuff, a lot of that stuff is just really goofy, and some of it is really fun. So that's what I was thinking I was getting myself into, and I was excited for this movie because, like I said, we just got Godzilla Minus One a few months ago, which is absolutely crazy that we got two movies within a few months of each other, regardless if they're in the same universe or not. Like, I think it's one hell of a time to be a Godzilla fan. But the tone of this one, like I said, is really fun and wacky, and they utilize that very well. The comedy in here lands about 80% of the time. It's nothing spectacular, but Brian Tyree Henry, he's a great actor, and then Dan Stevens, I believe that's his name. Those two in this film are probably my favorite parts of this film. Their bromance in here was, not saying it was fantastic, but it was something to, it was something to latch onto, and it was, not saying it's the best since RRR, but the bromance in here is pretty strong considering we're in a Godzilla and King Kong film. Kong in here, his story in here was really well done. We do have more time with Kong in here, so to Godzilla fans that might be a bummer, but I'll get into that on my mix section. But Kong's story in here and where it goes with him and certain characters I thought was really well done, and it was really fun. The destruction scenes in here were also really gnarly. I don't know, it was something that I was just a fan of, I've been used to like the man in the suit thing for like the last few weeks, to be honest. And it was nice to see, I'm not saying it was nice to see CGI, but it was nice to see something different for a change. So like the destruction here was really fun as well. And then I thought the cast overall was really good. Rebecca Hall is in here. Like I said, Brian Tyree Henry was great. Dan Stevens, and even the deaf girl, I don't know what her name was. I'm very sorry for that. She does just as good as she did in the first film. The finale in here was great as well. Regardless if, it takes a bit to get used to with the certain CGI elements and stuff, with it being so fast paced. But with that being said, let's move on to the things that I'm mixed with. The first thing that I'm mixed on, and you guys know this, I've been going through the whole Godzilla franchise as of recent. And next week we're talking about Ebra, The Horrors of the Deep. Really excited to check that out. But as a Godzilla fan, or at least as a new Godzilla fan, I wish we got at least like 15-20 more minutes with Godzilla, because his scenes are scattered throughout, and each one only lasts like 45 seconds to a minute and a half, and we only get that maybe every 10 to 15 minutes until the finale. So this is more of a Kong film, which I wish they called it Kong X Godzilla instead of Godzilla X Kong, because this is more of Kong's story. But that didn't entirely bother me because I've been a King Kong fan longer than I've been a Godzilla fan, but I haven't gotten into too much with his franchise. But it was a decent change of pace. I just wish that they had equal screen time, to be honest. Really quickly, I think like the third or fourth movie I ever saw in the theater was 2005's King Kong. So like I do have a special place in my heart for King Kong, but this isn't the same King Kong as we all know. But either way, I wish we had more Godzilla, but I'm not entirely complaining. The reason why it's in the mixed section is because I do enjoy Kong's story. Another thing that I'm mixed on is the dialogue in here. I was going to put it in the negatives, but I put it in the mixed section because it is serviceable, but there are some very cringe lines delivered by some people, and some of the writing isn't the best, particularly with where they go with things, and how some characters react or just talk about certain things. You know, but then again, I know what I was getting myself into, so it's not it's not a Martin Scorsese film. It's a Godzilla X Kong film, you know. So of course the dialogue isn't going to be the best, but there were some times where I did roll my eyes at certain lines of dialogue and deliveries. But either way, it's sort of what you come to expect with this franchise, or at least the MonsterVerse.
So I just want to apologize for the bad mic quality. I will pop up a couple times here and there. But another thing that I'm mixed on is I like the story behind how Kong gets his power-up glove, his Nintendo Power Glove. Like the way that Dan Stevens' character gets the actual glove just felt like he teleported. It just felt really weird. But that's why it's in the mix section, because I like the story behind how he got it. I just didn't like the execution of getting it, you know?
So with that being said, let's get on to the things that I didn't like about this film. There's not much I could say. I'm probably just going to go with pacing. I know I said that there was a lot of kaiju scenes in here, and those are really well done. But for some reason, even though this is an hour and 55 minutes, for some reason it felt like 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I don't know, the pacing wasn't entirely the best. So I looked at my phone at like the 1 hour mark, and I thought it'd been like an hour and a half. And I'm like, oh damn, we have like 50 more minutes to go. So like, I don't know. I wish they could have trimmed some things or something. I'm not entirely sure.
Another thing that I didn't like about this movie was the really convenient portals shown throughout. And like if there was someone in trouble, a certain character would come through a portal and save them, or if they needed another character that didn't need saving, they would still somehow show up because of the portal.
And then another thing that I didn't like about this film was the overuse of the soundtrack. The score in here was really good. I forgot to put that in the positives. The score is really good in here, but the soundtrack, they used too much licensed music for my taste, to be honest. 2 or 3 would have been fine, but I think they used like 5 or 6. So, not saying it was a bit overkill, but it was a bit overkill. So with that being said, I'm going to be giving Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire an overall grade of a 73%. So let me know what you thought about this movie in the comments below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know. But with this film, I thought it was a really fun time. I can't wait to bring my wife to it because I think she'll get a kick out of it. And, you know, because there are certain things that I found really funny. I think I cracked up like 3 or 4 times in the theater today. So it's a really fun time as long as you know what you're getting yourself into. But the title says it all. Godzilla X Kong. Like, it's not going to be a masterclass in cinema, but there's going to be fun to be had. But either way, I just want to say thank you guys for everything that you do, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.